Hey guys, Dr. Ben here, F8 Well Centers, and I'm here with Dr. Jake as well. And we're going to go over today some interesting research that we're seeing that this was actually in nature.com. What was that? Last week?
Yeah,
last week. This article came out, and they've been doing a bunch of research. Nature.com has really been great throughout all of COVID and kind of being a little bit more open-minded and just looking at research and statistics and all types of different things. But what we're going to look at today is this article that they were talking about, and actually some things that we've seen in practice where people are getting blood clots if they've had their shots. And what we're seeing is it hasn't really mattered whether it was the Johnson & Johnson, whether it was the Moderna. They're all having this potential for people to create blood clots, and we're going to go through that actual physiology, the anatomy of what's going on here, and why people are getting these, and then even potentially some things we can do to stop it. Because for us, I mean, sure, it's great. We go, okay, we see this and we see stuff going on, but what can we actually do to fix it? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there. Hey, Brianna, good to see you. There's a lot of people out there that are dealing with this, that have had those. You're talking billions of people around the world have had their shots, and you have this potential inside of them. So pop down below where you guys are watching from. Love to see you all over the country, all over the world, and let us know if you guys are seeing any of this in your life. I was just talking to my next door neighbor. He said he knows 9 people personally that have had clots, have stroked, and have actually died, and that's in this time frame. So this isn't to say you should or shouldn't. We're not trying to push one view or another, but it is very interesting, and we need to have that information, and you need to make educated decisions. And if you do make an educated decision, you need to know what else you can do in case that you do have a problem. Hey, Mac there in South Africa, good to see you there. So Dr. Jake, tell us a little bit about this study and what they're seeing.
Well, primarily they looked at 2, and that's the J&J, and another one that we didn't really get here was one mainly over in the UK. And they looked at it because those particular shots were primarily focused on the adenovirus. Now, what that essentially means is anytime you have a vaccine, kind of the classic way to deliver a shot is you take a known virus, and let's just say you chop off its arms and its legs so it's not as active, it can't put up that much of a fight. That's what's called attenuated. You alter it so it's not as aggressive, but the body still recognizes it as foreign. Well, what you do is you chop off those arms and legs, and then you attach new ones on. And those new ones are the ones that are supposed to essentially help you, help your immune system try and create a subtle but a long-lasting effect of that virus. So basically, they learn who to fight without you having to go into the full sickness. In general, that's how it's been. The adenovirus specifically has been used for years, and that's what the article went into. It's kind of a known one. It's been used for all decades, actually, and it will probably continue to be used. However, one thing we do know about that particular modality is its relationship with other cells and cell types in our body, and that's ultimately where it comes into its correlation with platelets. And platelets are essentially these tiny little, what we call cell fragments, or these tiny little floating little, think of them like mini cells. And when they get activated, they start what's called the clotting cascade. They start this ability, so when you cut yourself, you know how you bleed a little bit.
So platelets are a good thing.
Platelets, you want platelets. Absolutely.
It's kind of like iron. You want iron, but you don't want too much iron. But
Exactly.
Same thing here. Platelets are going to help that clotting. You slice your arm, it's gonna do it. But it's those people that you see, are having
Exactly.
decreased platelets.
You're not able to actually maintain any type of injury, because that's what platelets do. They help us. Oh, there's a cut. There's damage to a tissue. Let's seal it off and let's heal it, instead of letting it just kind of cascade up. So platelets are really, really vital. They are one of the most vital little cells in our body. So we really, really want them. But what we don't want is an overactivation of them, because that's going to cause 2 things. That's going to cause potential clotting in our arteries, and then our platelet values are going to drop in general. So now we're clotting when we don't need to. So then when we actually need to, we have a higher chance of like bleeding out because you're basically, you're maldistributing the use of platelets essentially.
Were they were they seeing any of these clots just with COVID itself, or is it mostly just with the vaccine?
So there has been a lot of reports of the clotting and stuff with the virus itself, and that's one of the unique things about. And this is not just, like we said, this is not just a video about just the vaccine itself. Whenever you have a vaccine or a virus itself that really ramps up the immune system, it exposes stuff that's already underlying in you. And this is one of the great things they found. They specifically tested platelet factor number 4, which is known as one of, because what clotting is it's actually this series of reactions, like one will do it, then it'll do it. Think of it like a conveyor belt, that all of a sudden you start with a few different products, you attach them all together, and what comes out in the end is a car. Well, a platelet is, all of a sudden a platelet gets activated, it activates all these other little molecules, and what you end up with is a scab, so to speak, or you plugged the hole. So what they found is this platelet factor number 4, which they've studied for years. It's been known to be with other vaccines, other sicknesses, other viruses and whatnot. And they noticed that that particular vaccine with the adenovirus, which has been known for years to activate platelet number 4, that if a person already has a predisposition, so their immune system is already a little bit sensitive and tends to overactivate that platelet factor number 4, that when you got the vaccine or when you got COVID, it just ramped up your immune system, and your immune system now activated that platelet number 4 really fast. And what that platelet number 4 means is it started the clotting cascade.
What do you think some of those markers, what should people be looking for? Is that like a C-reactive protein? Is that a...
So it can be a C-reactive protein, but you also just want to look at your overall platelet count. If you start dipping below about 180, when you just get a normal CBC. A CBC is the most commonly run blood panel by any doctor in any hospital or clinic. Like it's like baseline number 1. And you want to look at your platelet value. When you start getting really, really low, that means your platelets are being used up. You don't have enough. And when you start getting really, really low, you lose the ability to start clotting. So that's going to be one of them. Some of the other ones are going to be some of like your lymphocytes or neutrophils, but really it's that platelet value that you see starting to drop. Normally people should be around 250-ish is a pretty good number. Of course, it's going to vary between age and gender, but 250 is a pretty good number you want to be looking for on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, it's this. The big thing that we're seeing is that the clots, even here, aren't just kind of like with COVID. COVID deaths were not just this random thing that just struck everybody. Just roll the dice, and you could die from COVID. What we saw was that it truly was a dying of people that already had these pre-existing conditions, that had inflammatory conditions like Dr. Jake was talking about, had diabetes, had high blood pressure, were overweight, had all these other issues, and then they get into this excitatory state, and those are all going to kind of keep that body right on the edge, right?
Oh yeah, and that's really what I've had to tell patients all the time is we are not here to judge like you got it, you didn't get it, it's in the past, okay? Our goal is to help you optimize the health and function of your body right now. And if you have an underlying condition, then your body's ability to fight that without, like you said, going over the edge and really falling into sickness and having the amplified effects, it's just really, really decreased. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mac asked, could low iron cause clotting?
So, in a very, very roundabout way, if you have going to increase the amount of transferrin, which is a carrier molecule you have body into kind of undue stress, undue hypoxic state, which increases tissue destruction and tissue turnover, which can increase the presentation of what's called fibrin or these little protein strands that activate platelets, which can cause platelets to go down or cause an overactive. In a very roundabout way, not necessarily directly But once again, the body's a system. When you remove one vital portion of the system, now you get to see how the body's going to compensate. And that's a yes and no answer. So
Yeah, interesting one here. Sam, he's on a blood thinner. He tracks his INR weekly, which is how thick or thin that blood is.
Mm-hmm.
I got 2 Pfizer shots after the second. My blood got thicker, had to increase his warfarin. So, that's absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is one of the things that was really great about this article that you can read is
And we'll pop that down below here in a second. I'll get that for you.
They really compared it to heparin, which heparin has been we've known that's an anti-clotting kind of medication or a blood thinner medication for years. But that just so happens to activate that protein, the platelet factor number 4, and cause that clotting cascade. So that's the trick, and one of the really big messages we want to bring to the blood, or to our patients is we have to start understanding: is your immune system already ramped up? Is it already sensitive? Is it close to that threshold of just going into autoimmunity or going into overactivity? Any of these things, and this is what the research is starting to show us. We're realizing, man, that whole COVID thing was strong. It was a powerful virus. I mean.
And we're seeing, that's why we're seeing long COVID symptoms in so many patients. And I mean, it was a thing, and it probably still is a thing in certain places. And yet, it's not 100% black and white. Everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to do that. We've got a comment here. Diane, my sister-in-law had the clots on her first Pfizer shot. The GP told her not to get it, but told her to get her booster. I don't quite understand that one. And then now she's getting shingles on a recurrent basis. And so, yes, it can ramp up that immune system, but we're also seeing it can squash that immune system.
It just wears it out. And we see that a lot. A lot of patients come in with these long haul COVID symptoms, and you look at their white blood cell count. I mean, it's at a 3.0, 2.8. I mean, it
should be at least 5.
Yeah, it's just nosediving.
And that's Lynn Noel's there. Lynn, she's been having that reactivated Epstein-Barr. She didn't get the shot, but from COVID, that's what we're seeing in a lot of people is that reactivated Epstein-Barr. What is active? This reactivated, so it's an active Epstein-Barr. It's going to feel like a mild case of what somebody has a really bad one in high school or college, where they have to miss a whole semester and they're tired and they're sleeping 14 hours a day and they just cannot get up and go. We're seeing that with patients as well, and there's certain markers that you look for to see if that has actually been reactivated. But ultimately, there's no perfect antiviral, right?
No.
If there was, they would have given everybody that. Nobody would have gotten COVID, and we'd be fine. But even in the natural world, there's no perfect antiviral. But the best antiviral you've got is yourself. And inside of you, remember, you cannot out-supplement a weakened immune system, a stressed immune system. So if you're under chronic stress, if you're not sleeping well, if your blood sugar's jacked, if you're overweight and have diabetes or prediabetes or insulin resistance or all these different things, your immune system is not going to function as well as it should. And there's no amount of zinc, NAC, what else?
Vitamin D,
quercetin, all the things we've talked about for years. And yet, that is not going to overcome this internal state of optimal immune system function. Not going up too high, not going down too low. We call it modulation, because some people, they're all this way, and it's like overwhelmed, that immune system attack. And then other people, it's really low, and then you got this reactivated Epstein-Barr and a lot of other issues there. What causes high blood cells if showing on blood tests?
You're talking about all sorts of things. So lots of different disease state processes, and it's also, remember, when you take a blood test, it's a snapshot. So it can actually be the body ramping up in response. Higher, your lymphocytes are higher. There's specific types of white blood cells. Well, what that allows us to see is, hey, look, this white blood cell, its main job is to attack viruses, attack bacteria. They're really common in inflammatory or those type of reactions. So it really depends on the cell type. Now, if you're saying, hey, look, my white blood cells are high, my red blood cells are high, my platelets are high, now that's actually kind of a bone marrow issue. That's actually the body is being told to make way too much, and that is a specific disease process that we can kind of chat about, because that is something to be taken seriously if you have simply too many cells being produced and running around the body.
Well, and there's white blood cells and red blood cells.
Exactly.
And so, those white blood cells are going to be more that immune system. Those red blood cells are going to be more about transporting oxygen and some of those. Here's Lynette, my adult daughter, got blood clots from the Pfizer booster. Believe me, the hospital took it very seriously and rushed her into all the necessary tests. But of course, it was up to her to report it. So, unfortunately, a lot of the docs, a lot of hospitals, places like that, they're not reporting it to the VAERS, and so then people are left to do that as well. So
and one thing, this may help people that are watching is, well, what do I need to look out for? Like what are some of those signs? And some of the really the ones that you need to really check in and be like, okay, something's going on, is some of the long haul ones are just like, hey, I'm really fatigued, I have brain fog. But when you notice something within a few days and you're like, I have headaches, I have nausea, I have memory issues, my speech is slurred, and we're not just talking like I can't recall a word or two. Those are some of those long haul systems of the body's just depleted. But when you, within a few days, it ramps up to all of a sudden you're like, I know I'm not having a stroke, but oh my goodness, my cognitive, my neurology is just, something's not right, or you're having that racing heart, or you're having these massive fluctuations, and it's never happened before. That's something where, yes, you do need to take blood clots seriously. This is something where you really need to go and check in with that ER
and we've seen it, even 6, 8, 9 months later. So it doesn't have to be just a right after the shot and then somebody gets a blood clot. This could be a down the road thing as well. Maybe you get super stressed out. Maybe you get some other inflammatory thing going on. But really keep an eye on this. And my assumption though too is that even somebody not having the shot, but even having COVID itself, could get this flow and this path going. It's not just about the shot. Something about that spike protein and all the things that cascade can create. So it's definitely an issue. So what do we do? What do you do if you've had the shot or a loved one's had the shot? What do you do to get that down as much as you can? It's really about the inflammation. So what do you do day in and day out? You keep your blood sugar as steady as you can, 85 to 110 all day long, nice and steady, no more than 20, 25 point jumps. You get your weight down to an optimal level. You start getting your proper sleep, get your stress down. A lot of the things that we're talking about day in and day out, but
fix those digestive issues, because if you want to turn your immune system on and get it really irritated,
get it ramped.
You have chronic immune issues.
You've got to get your gut. So leaky gut, microbiome imbalances, if you're not producing enough bile, all these different issues, all these things that we look at, you've got to get your body working as well as it feasibly can. As far as supplements goes, some of the like nattokinase enzymes have been shown to help help break that down. Obviously, fish oil, more on that EPA side is going to be helpful. Very good quality turmeric can be good. What about even some nitric oxide support?
And that's a huge one. That's one that I even personally, I know Dr. Penn also, we use, because it just helps with vascular rehab, it helps with perfusion, it helps with tissue turnover. That is one that I tell patients all the time, just because I'm in the profession, I easily have $1,500 worth of supplements in my cabinet, but I take nothing regular. I use them as tools because when this happens, I'm going to take this for a few weeks. I help my family out with it. There's 2 things I take regularly, and one of those is that nitric balance to help my blood system, my perfusion, my capillaries rehab. And the other one is a Clearvite, because I want to help my making sure my liver's calmed down, it can flush out the
Processing
trash.
toxins,
Yep.
all those things. So, the exercise is going to be great. Going for a walk is movement, which is good, but there's a difference between movement and exercise. And you've got to get that heart rate elevated. 180 minus your age is a great zone to get up into. So if you're 40 years old, getting it up into the 140 range, but if you haven't exercised in a while, if you're out of shape, maybe even pop that down to 135 as a max. So here's the problem, is that so many people aren't exercising enough, but the ones that are overdoing it, and they're stressing their body and trashing it and getting run down. So, is light therapy good for circulation? It definitely can be. I would look at we put the saunas on here. We've talked to the portable sauna group, and we've got some great ones, and there's light therapy in there, as well as that you can get up to 170 degrees, but your head's sticking out. So, I mean, it just gets going. One of the best things, if you've got a treadmill and it's got elevation on there, I love this. The difference between even running versus walking at an incline is dramatic. Yesterday, I just Sunday I don't usually work out, but I get on the treadmill. I went on elevation, and I was sweating, and so much different than running. So if you've got elevation, going even 1.5, 2 miles an hour, and just going at that elevation, you're going to sweat. You're going to get that circulation going different, even than just going for a Peloton spin or whatever it is. So use some elevation in there as well. Hello there up in Wales. Do you have another one? Yeah, why are kids getting all the liver problems?
Yeah, so why are kids getting all these liver problems? Well, so some of it's going to be acute. When you stress out the immune system, when you put, the liver is your main immune organ. It's the one that has to process all this stuff. All the trash the immune system brings back in, it's got to run through it. So yes, kids can have quite some really, really high numbers because their bodies tend to have a very, very, very strong response.
It's a robust immune system.
And it's really reactive because it's ego to learn, just like children, their brains, their immune system. And that's actually why this recent round of this virus actually didn't affect kids as much as adults, because this was new to adults. That's why they call it a novel pathogen. Well, a lot of viruses are new to children.
Right.
And so this was just another one. The body's like, sweet, I have to learn, I have to mount a response. And that's actually why we see when you look at normal ranges for kids in their liver numbers, like adult males can get up to 40 on their ALT, AST, adult females like 30. Whereas a kid, the range is between like 15 and 90 or something. Like they can get higher liver numbers just because we know their immune system is building. And the liver is your university for the immune system. So yes, we don't want it to go too high, and we also want it to be able to come back down pretty quickly. If that doesn't happen, that means the liver is saying, hey, look, I tried, but now I'm all plugged up, I'm backed up, I can't finish this process. And the great thing with even conservative treatment, kids respond so quickly and so positively.
Yeah. So here's the deal, guys. We don't truly know all the answers of why this stuff is going on and what caused what, but we do know that the worse state your body is in, the more unhealth that you have going on in your body, the worse things are going to be, whether it's this virus or the next one or a bacteria that comes through or Epstein-Barr or whatever it is. You need to get your body right. You need to be right in your mental state, in your emotional state, in your physical state, in your gut, in your all these different things need to be working just right. And then you can handle most anything that comes at you. And so if your loved one is dealing with any of these issues, any of these inflammatory processes, long COVID, any issues that you're just not able to deal with and get down to where they're going to be in a nice, healthy range, let us know. We've got F8 doctors all over the country ready to talk and help you guys get your lives back. So if you've got any other questions at all, pop those down below. We'll be watching this thread. Share this with as many people as you know. We're going to have the nature.com article on here in a second. Share this with as many people as you know. We need to get this information out. We need people to come together and say, okay, hey, I did this, I did that. It needs to be this cumulative effect to be able to get people there. because unfortunately, we're probably going to see more and more of these issues. And if you got any questions or concerns,